Greetings and welcome. This is the first episode of a new series on the channel called The Beauty of Games. In this series, I want to showcase games which I find to be compelling, intriguing, addicting, beautiful, and of course, fun. On your screen now, you see the first game I wish to talk about, and it's not new. And honestly, it's not beautiful in the traditional sense, but let me tell you, it is absolutely captivating, and in this video, I plan to explain exactly why. To help me with my explanation, allow me to draw a parallel to a very different and popular game, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. A fantastic game, and my personal favorite Zelda game ever. One aspect of Breath of the Wild that truly drew me into the world of Hyrule was its systemic gameplay. To have systemic gameplay means to have a world of mechanics which work together naturally and affect each other. This leads to a far more immersive and interesting world, but is very difficult to pull off. For example, in Breath of the Wild, a lightning bolt may strike nearby and start a fire on something that has been programmed to catch fire when in contact with not only lightning, but a fire arrow, a large fire spreading out, or something else. Then you can light your weapon on fire from the newly burning fire, attack an enemy who reacts differently to the fire, and then you can throw the flaming weapon at something flammable to start a new fire, and this new fire creates an updraft which you can then use to escape on Link's paraglider. This is absolutely fascinating to me, and I adore these systems. Using one mechanic to affect many other mechanics makes the world feel alive and realistic, and cuts back on game logic as much as possible, which, as much as we all love it at times, is not often a good thing for the enjoyment of a game. Now, everyone already knows how great Breath of the Wild is, so back to the game this video is about, Mount & Blade Warband. You may notice that it's not the prettiest game ever. Indeed, it was released in 2010 and looks older than that. I mean, just look at this name. There you can see a little borderline under the K that you should definitely not be able to see, although to be fair, it took me a long time before I noticed stuff like that. But don't mistake the visuals looking poor to mean the game itself does not have a ton of care, attention, and love put into it. Mount & Blade Warband is technically just an expansion pack to Mount & Blade, released a year earlier in 2009, but don't worry about the original, Warband is far better. The game plays out like an RPG. It starts out almost like some traditional RPG where you create your character, choose their background, their passions in life, and why they're starting on this adventure. You even see what looks like a character sheet straight out of some tabletop RPG with a bunch of stats to tinker with which have been influenced by your choices. We'll come back to those stats. And then it all starts. You're attacked. A man comes at you with a weapon in hand and you fumble around realizing you already have to defend yourself. You figure out how to attack and you slay the supposed bandit. You've entered the world of Calradia, a fictional, medieval world. It is at this point the game suggests you do a quest, which is really a tutorial for learning some of the basic concepts of the game, that also leaves you with some money and experience at the end to get started on the right foot. It is at this point that the sandbox aspect of the game opens up. Now you can do, well, whatever you want practically. You'll move across the world map, likely with a small group of warriors at your side, and explore the continent. You'll likely fight some bandits, talk to lords who all have different personalities and may treat you nicely or with disdain for having disturbed them. You'll learn of the history of Calradia and why there are so many different factions that reside within it. What you don't realize, though, are your options. After talking to lords and meeting their king, you'll find you can join a faction by getting on their good sides, which you can do by helping them with various tasks or assisting them in battle against bandits and the like. But this is certainly not your only choice. It's viable and in fact very effective to not join anyone and merely play as a trader, going between towns and villages, buying low and selling high, saving up until you can afford to purchase land within a town and start your own business, which will earn profits for you whilst you are away. You can become a bandit hunter and train up an elite task force of men to easily strike down any bandit group that comes your way and take their weapons, armor, and food to make your money. You can meet companions who have their own stats and level them up to create very powerful allies in battle. You may choose to search for when tournaments are being held and bet on yourself to win hefty sums, as well as the admiration of a lady you can dedicate the win to. Did I mention you can marry? Although to be honest, I don't really find the choices mightily appealing most of the time. But let's finally bring this back to my comparison at the start of the video. Just like how fire may affect the world in various ways in Breath of the Wild, game systems I've mentioned in Warband beautifully work together and create a world that feels alive when you can ignore the graphical limitations. For instance, I said you can purchase land and earn profits from a business in towns. And you can, unless the lord of the town hates you, in which case no one in the town will be brave enough to sell you land for fear of punishment from their lord. So if you have insulted or denounced the lord in question, or perhaps raided their fiefs, that will affect your ability to run a business there. I also mentioned trading, and some places in Calradia are greater importers and exporters of certain goods. So if you want to create a business, it is best that you choose a type of business where the materials are plenty and thus cheap, and there is a lot of exporting. If you don't, your business can even make a loss, though the game does all the math for you so that there isn't much guesswork. Speaking of trading, caravans have to travel across the map to trade and are thus vulnerable to bandits as well as enemy armies. A town which sends and receives fewer caravans will be poorer and make less money, and therefore make less tax for their lord. Everything is interconnected, and I have never played a game which I felt did systemic gameplay as well as in Mount & Blade Warband. I could honestly go on for longer about how systemic gameplay affects the game, but I think it'll be way more fun if you jump in yourself and experience this sense of immersion and world building for yourself. Mount & Blade Warband is one of those games for me that I get an itch to play like at least once a year. I don't know how many times I started and restarted save files, got tens or hundreds of hours from them and then quit, before starting it all over again later, playing a tad differently. I haven't even gotten to combat, which features a layered, multi-directional system of attacks and blocks with a variety of weapons from literal stones to lances, crossbows, greatswords, halberds, and more. A combat system so good that the game's fans begged the developers for multiplayer in Warband, which still has tournaments to this day. Now I am atrocious at it and stick to single player myself, but in case you were hoping for it, multiplayer is on offer here. Oh, and you're commanding an army in this game, and that's true in battle too. So if you'd like to roleplay as a tactician instead of a warlord, you can do that. You have the option to tell your troops to move where you want, follow you, move 10 paces forward or back. You can order them based on troop type so that you can have infantry in front of your ranged units or cavalry on the side ready to flank your opposition. You can even order your infantry to create a shield wall and have other various formations. You can order your archers to hold fire, fire on your command, or fire at will. And then there's siege gameplay, with different siege weapons and differently designed castles to siege. There's very little which is more satisfying than taking an enemy's castle or defending your own as you rain arrows from the battlements, scoring headshots on easy targets, or hold the entry point against hundreds of attackers with your sword and shield. This game is so deep and layered, not only in its combat, but in its entirety, that I think even after as many playthroughs as I've had, that I haven't yet delved into some of the game's most deep features and systems yet. And that is what makes Mount & Blade Warband beautiful. Thank you for watching. If you found it half as cool as I do, consider picking up the game on Steam. It's usually pretty cheap and goes on sale a lot, so go try it out. I can bet that if you're still watching, it's a game you'd really enjoy and be able to pour a ton of hours into. Also, the developers are making a new Mount & Blade game, which is looking to be a much improved and way prettier game that enhances what Warband already gives. So if the graphics are a big deal to you, you can wait for that, but I do believe Warband deserves a shot, even so. Anyways, thank you very much. Leave a like, let me know what you thought in the comments, and as always, have a dandy day.